Everything changed in a matter of seconds. And honestly, the shockwaves, they're still ripping through the very foundation of one of the NFL's most desperate franchises. I want you to picture the visceral mood in Cleveland right now. Just close your eyes and imagine it. The freezing rain coming off Lake Erie, that deafening, hollow silence inside the stadium after the final whistle of the year, and the cold, harsh realization settling over the entire fan base that their championship window isn't just closing, no, it's been completely shattered. Welcome to NFL Nexus. We are your premier channel for deep dive explainers into the brutal, often hidden realities of the National Football League. If you want to actually understand the high-stakes mechanics running the league behind closed doors, hit that subscribe button right now. Like this explainer, and comment down below with your thoughts as we go through this chaos. And hey, if you really want to support the channel and keep these cinematic deep dives coming, consider becoming a channel member today. We'd love to have you. Because today we are looking at an absolute masterclass in catastrophic consequences. The Cleveland Browns' 2026 offseason isn't just a simple roster restructuring. It is a high-tension time bomb, and the clock is loudly ticking.
So the real question we have to ask ourselves is this: what happens when a franchise's massive past mistakes violently collide with its future? We are currently watching a front office backed entirely into a corner, 2 straight losing seasons. And you have to understand, these weren't just standard rebuild years, right? These were agonizing seasons defined by blown fourth-quarter leads, catastrophic miscommunications on critical fourth downs, and a locker room that eventually just descended into a defeated, hollow silence. We are witnessing the departure of true franchise legends, leaving a massive cultural void behind. And what remains in that void is a frantic, high-stakes game of front office chess, where literally one single draft pick could trigger a chain reaction that tears the entire remaining roster apart. This isn't just about a team trying to incrementally get better. This is about absolute, bare minimum survival.
I want you to listen really closely to these words from star cornerback Denzel Ward. He said, "Say I do get traded. For me, wherever I'm at, that's where I'm supposed to be. But I love playing for the Cleveland Browns." Man, just imagine the scene of that quote, a sweltering post-practice press conference. Ward is physically exhausted, leaning into the microphone, delivering a really painful truth. You know, in the NFL, loyalty is a beautiful sentiment, but it is ultimately painfully secondary to the ruthless reality of the salary cap spreadsheet. Ward desperately wants to be in Cleveland. He just stood there and watched defensive cornerstone Myles Garrett get shockingly shipped off to the West Coast. And now, Ward himself might actually be the necessary, heartbreaking sacrifice required just to pay for the sins of the most expensive mistake in NFL history.
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, the quarterback time bomb.
To really understand why a beloved, absolutely elite defensive star like Ward is squarely on the chopping block right now, we have to look at the glaring, bleeding wound crippling the Browns roster. Consider this tragic timeline for a moment. It tells a story of an absolute freefall. Look back at 2020. Deshaun Watson led the entire league in passing. He was elite. He was dynamic. He was viewed as a true franchise savior. Then we hit 2022. And Cleveland literally mortgages their entire future, signing him to a fully guaranteed, massive $230 million contract. And then, the total collapse. But here's the thing. The physical injuries weren't even the start of it. Before the shoulder broke, the mechanics just vanished. We saw incredibly hesitant footwork. We saw him staring down primary receivers directly into double coverage, completely refusing to process the field. And then, his body just completely broke down. A broken shoulder. Not 1, but 2 ruptured Achilles tendons. He has missed 2 full seasons since his peak. Cleveland is absolutely, undeniably desperate for a functional backup plan under center, but they are entirely trapped by their own checkbook.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what I mean. $46 million. Take a second to let that number sink in. That is the crushing, inescapable final amount still owed to Deshaun Watson for this season alone. Now, you might be wondering, how on earth does the front office allow this to happen? Why was the contract completely fully guaranteed? Well, because owner Jimmy Haslam, terrified and desperate to outbid the Atlanta Falcons and New Orleans Saints back in 2022, basically circumvented all traditional salary cap logic. He set an unprecedented, completely guaranteed market that entirely trapped the franchise. You cannot trade Deshaun Watson. There is no market. You cannot cut him without absorbing a genuinely historic dead cap penalty. So what happens? You have to carry him on the 53-man roster, which completely paralyzes your financial flexibility for everyone else. So, without any real money to spend, you are forced to look for a developmental savior in the draft. Last year, the Browns selected Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round. But look at these two placed side by side. On one hand, you have the broken, untradeable veteran. On the other, you have a developmental prospect who was mercilessly thrown to the wolves with minimal preparation last offseason. Sanders started 7 games as a rookie, and honestly, it was brutal to watch. 10 interceptions to just 7 touchdowns. And look, these weren't just your standard rookie hiccups. These were sheer panic throws made under heavy, terrifying duress against ferocious division rivals like Baltimore, where his offensive line was collapsing within literally 2 seconds of the snap. The lack of preparation absolutely haunted him. Now, going into this year, he is supposedly competing with Watson for the starting job in camp, but let's be real. The front office secretly knows this might not be enough. They need a spark. They desperately need a wild card. Which brings us nicely to Section 2, the supplemental wild card. This right here is the disruptive element that could completely detonate Cleveland's fragile depth chart. Enter Brendan Sorsby. He's a 6'3", cannon-armed powerhouse quarterback out of Cincinnati, and he is suddenly entering the NFL's supplemental draft this summer. Why? Because he's facing a possible, fairly lengthy NFL suspension for admitted college sports betting. Now, if you're not familiar, how does the supplemental draft actually work? It's basically a highly secretive blind auction held in July. Teams submit silent bids directly to the league office, offering a specific round's draft pick. If your bid is the highest, congratulations, you get the player, but you automatically forfeit that corresponding pick in the next year's actual NFL draft. Here is the massive catch, though. On film, Sorsby is viewed by a lot of scouts as a potential 2027 first-round talent. And general manager Andrew Berry? He has an absolute obsession with distressed assets. He loves finding value. He's actively turned Cleveland into a sort of sanctuary for second chances, always calculating if a player is just a good person who made a bad, very costly mistake. If the Browns genuinely believe they can secure a first-round arm for the sheer cost of, say, a 2027 third-round bid, that is a classic, undeniable Andrew Berry target. I mean, they've even already drafted his Cincinnati tight end, Joe Royer, which proves for sure they've been studying the Bearcats' offensive film intensely. But here is where the roster math just utterly fails. If they submit a bid and actually win Sorsby, just look at the resulting logjam. It's a mess. You have Deshaun Watson, who, as we established, is financially immovable. You have Shadir Sanders. Then you have Dylan Gabriel, a 2025 third-rounder with a great college pedigree as a transfer portal nomad, sure, but he's severely underwhelmed in 6 rookie starts. He was throwing with an alarming lack of velocity when the pro weather turned cold. Yet the organization has stubbornly committed to his development anyway. And then, on top of all that, you have Talon Green, an absolutely freakish 6'6" athlete with terrifying straight-line speed. But his footwork is so fundamentally raw that divisional rivals were eagerly hovering, just waiting to poach him if Cleveland dared try to hide him on the practice squad. You see the problem here? You simply can't keep 5 quarterbacks on an active NFL roster. There's no way. If Sorsby enters the building, someone has to get aggressively voted off the island. You can't cut Green without losing him instantly to Baltimore or Pittsburgh, and you obviously can't trade Watson. So it forces a dramatic, highly desperate roster move. And that leads us to Section 3, the cap space sacrifice. Let's move to and see how this builds, breaking down the domino effect step by step. Step 1, you draft Brendan Sorsby, officially sacrificing your 2027 third-round pick in the blind auction. Step 2, because of the impossible roster logjam we just talked about, you are now totally forced to trade either Sanders or Gabriel, and you'll likely do it for mere pennies on the dollar because all 31 other general managers know exactly how desperate you are to clear a roster spot. They have all the leverage. Step 3, now you're down crucial draft capital, and you desperately need cap space to build even a competent offensive line around this chaotic reset. So to recoup that lost capital and space, you must trade a beloved veteran defensive star. And the target is squarely on the player carrying the staggering number, $31 million. That is Denzel Ward's colossal, cap-crippling hit for the 2026 season. And you have to understand the context here. The Browns' locker room is already a ghost town of its former self. Myles Garrett wasn't just an edge rusher. He was the quiet, terrifying enforcer of the entire franchise. Legendary guard Joel Bitonio was the vocal anchor, the guy who basically held the locker room together through the absolute darkest days. Their absence leaves a staggering, massive leadership void. The defense is bleeding out its icons, leaving only a few massive contracts still standing. So, the crucial point is, why Ward over someone else? Let's conduct a quick comparative analysis. Take a look at safety Grant Delpit. Delpit is on an expiring deal. Trading him only saves a pretty negligible $2 million and yields incredibly low round picks because, frankly, strong safety just isn't a premium, highly valued position in the modern NFL. But Denzel Ward, he's 29 years old, a pristine first-round pick from 2018, coming off his third consecutive brilliant Pro Bowl season. He is a pure lockdown elite corner. Trading him saves a massive $17.4 million against the cap this year and fetches desperately needed high draft picks. Furthermore, rumors of a hold-in at mandatory minicamp are only pouring pure gasoline on this fire. Actually, let me explain what a hold-in is really quickly. Unlike a classic holdout, where a player stays home and incurs mandatory, unwaivable $100,000 daily fines under the new CBA, a hold-in is a silent protest. Ward shows up to the facility, he attends the meetings, he's there, but he absolutely refuses to put on a helmet or risk injury on the practice field until his financial future is secured. It totally forces the team's hand. And look, even though Andrew Berry calmly says to the media there are no plans to move him, remember, he said the exact same rehearsed line right before trading Myles Garrett.
This brings us to Section 4, Reloading the Arsenal.
Because if the old guard is being systematically dismantled to pay for these shifting financial realities, who is actually left to play football? The Browns are rapidly pivoting to a severe sink-or-swim youth movement. The new core tells a really daunting uphill story. We're talking about 5 completely new, completely untested starters on the offensive line. Guys like DeJuan Jones and Luke Weipler, young players who endured grueling rookie struggles, constantly getting blown off the ball by veteran defensive tackles. The pressure now falls squarely on incredibly young, unproven shoulders. Second-year wide receiver Isaiah Bond recognized this terrifying reality immediately. He spent his entire offseason practically living in the weight room, packing on 15 pounds of straight, dense muscle. He jumped from a slender 180 to nearly 195 pounds. Why? Because he doesn't just want to be a finesse vertical speed threat anymore. He knows he has to win brutal contested catches over the middle of the field and become a physical force in the run-blocking game just to physically survive in this new, desperately gritty offense.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how incredibly fast the 2026 rookie class is insulating themselves from the outside noise. Second-round pick Denzel Boston openly admitted the pre-draft process was intensely stressful, but the literal moment he arrived in the Cleveland pressure cooker, he went straight to work. No hesitation. He has already built deep, organic chemistry training directly with 6th-round quarterback Taylon Green, linebacker Justin Jefferson, offensive tackle Austin Barber, center Parker Brailsford, and he's even hanging out at media photo shoots with first-rounder Casey Conception. This rookie class is bonding tightly under the intense, suffocating pressure of an offseason that feels much more like a high-stakes survival test than a standard NFL training camp. They know they're all they've got. Finally, we reach Section 5, the AFC North arms race. Because while Cleveland is frantically tearing down walls to try and fix their cracked foundation, the rest of their brutal division is certainly not standing still. Step back for a second and view the wider division. The AFC North is historically unforgiving. It's a division built on freezing weather, violently physical defenses, and absolutely zero mercy. Rebuilds here don't just take a year, they get franchises buried for a decade. While the Browns are scrambling around, taking wild gambles on suspended supplemental draft picks and frantically rotating through 5 different unproven quarterbacks, the Pittsburgh Steelers are executing a terrifyingly quiet, methodical master plan. They are molding their future under the steady, genius wing of an absolute legend. Just listen to the Steelers' young, highly touted quarterback Drew Aller. In the film room, Aaron Rodgers is just asking me questions of what I was seeing. I'm really excited to keep learning from him. Man, it is a chilling, stark contrast. Rodgers isn't just offering generic, pat-on-the-back veteran advice. He's actively teaching Aller the absolute deepest nuances of the position. We're talking pre-snap cadence, elite eye manipulation, and exactly how to unmask a disguised Mike linebacker before the ball is even snapped. The Steelers are giving their young quarterback pure stability, precise drill work, and Hall of Fame mentorship. The Browns, meanwhile, they're desperately throwing darts at the board, praying a late-round pick or a suspended wildcard prospect can miraculously save their fractured, wildly expensive offense. Which leaves us with this final, inescapable question. If the Browns actually go through with this, if they bet the house on a wildcard like Brendan Sorsby and sacrifice a cornerstone, elite defensive star like Denzel Ward just to pay the tab, will this desperate gamble finally save their franchise? Or will it be the fatal move that finishes it for good? Well, that's what we're going to find out. Thank you so much for diving into the depths of the NFL's most complex, high-stakes front office war room with us today on this explainer. If you enjoyed this analysis, make sure you are subscribed to NFL Nexus right now, drop a like on this explainer to help us out with the algorithm, leave your comment below on whether you think Cleveland is making a massive, unfixable mistake with this whole quarterback situation, and remember to become a channel member to support this cinematic deep dive content. We couldn't do it without you. We will see you all in the next explainer.